Today we have another old tape deck, this one from 1977. It was made by Technics. I have the identical deck myself. I have the RS677. This is an RS677, identical in every way except for the 677 came with a remote control. This one's in for no sound. Let's see if we can get this one going. Check it out. And what type of remote control would a tape deck from 1976 have? Well, it would have a remote control like this. This is the remote control for this deck for a 676, 677. Notice the fire hose connector, that big heavy flat wire, and this plugs into the back of the unit. And you have your basic rewind, fast forward, stop, play, pause, and record. You press both buttons to record, and it'll control all the functions of this deck. This remote was sent into me by a viewer a while back. I don't think I've even shown this remote yet, but this was sent to me by a viewer after he saw that I had a 676. He wrote me and said, "Hey, I got a remote for that," and he sent it to me. And it does work. But anyway, this deck was sent in. The guy that owns it removed some of the knobs here so they wouldn't get lost, and he removed the side panels, the wooden side panels. Don't know what's wrong with this yet. Let's get into it and get it working. Okay, the unit is connected. Let's turn on the power. Whoops, where's the power button on this thing? Somewhere here there's a power switch down in the corner. Lights are lighting up. First thing to check is the capstan motor spinning. So we'll open up the cassette compartment and check and see that yes, the capstan is turning. I'm going to depress the Okay, so I just checked by putting my hand in and depressing the cassette in switch to see if the mechanism would operate. Looks like some of the functions are working. Let's load a cassette. Now these units were essentially a top loader. Even though you loaded the cassette from the front, you actually put the cassette in like that and the cassette snapped down. When you ejected the tape would be kicked out. It does not appear to be ejecting the cassette. With the tape loaded, if we hit fast forward, we'll see that the tape does fast forward. Rewind, it does rewind. And play, it does not move. Oh, pause is on. Let's remove pause. Okay, now the tape is moving, but we have no sound. And I know that there is something recorded on this tape. Weird, because you can see the tape moving, but of course because you're looking at a mirror, the tape appears to be moving backwards, but it's actually moving forward. So we got no sound on that. That's the problem with this unit. It has no sound. I'm just going to activate the record play switches a few times. We'll see if it'll pass any signal through. I've got signal going in through the line input, and there's no sound whatsoever. So we have a problem with the amplifier on this unit. Somewhere in the electronics, there's no sound making it through the preamp or the amplifier, because I should, by putting it into record, and that tape's not moving now, I should have signal. I do have a signal feeding through the inputs. So we have no sound on this unit. And of course we have no sound on playback. So there's our problem. Let's get started on this one. First we'll take the top off, see where the problem lies. Oh, and if you're wondering why the eject wouldn't work, that's because the pause button was depressed before. Remove the pause and it will eject the tape. Just figured I would point that out. Somebody's probably already sounded off in the comments, and now they're removing their comments because they're probably screaming, "The pause is on!" Yes, the pause was on. That's why it wouldn't eject the tape. Okay, so let's get the top off this one. The guy that owns this has made my work easy for me. Only 2 screws. One thing to note when I cycle the power off and on, listen. Right, I'll turn the volume up on my amplifier so you can hear it. And I just noticed the Dolby FM switch is turned on. Let's turn that off. Let's just put a tape in this thing and try it on play one more time and see whether we get anything. Oh, interesting. Now I'm hearing something I wasn't hearing before, and I have full deflection on the meter. This is now pointing towards a record play switch problem. Take a look. So play. Got one channel that's actually working, but the other one's not. Let's just try this. I think we have a record play switch problem, which is over here. The switch is actually underneath the mechanism, but I think we have a record play switch problem. That's what we're having on this one. So let's just pop the bottom off this one. While we're in the bottom, we can actually inspect the belt. Belt doesn't look to be in too bad a shape. It's not broken, and there's a lot of torque on it still. I think the belt is okay. This is the amp board. We're going to have to remove the amp board to get at the switches in order to clean them. As you can see, this unit is all completely, totally solenoid driven, which is kind of a neat unit. Now you remember on the one that I have, mine had exactly the same problem. I had to clean the record play switches on mine as well. And that's a given considering the age of the unit. Yeah, first I have to unplug the Dolby board from the top. There we go. This one is the Dolby board. Right, so the Dolby board unplugs, and then we can remove the amp board below to get at the record play switches. There are 3 switches on this board that need to be cleaned. One of them's here, one of them's here, and there's another one down on the bottom that is activated. So we'll just get some Neutral in here, sprayed into the switches. I'm using Neutral by MG Chemicals to clean the switches. There are other cleaners such as Deoxit D5 that will also do a very good job. Neutral is a little bit less expensive and it's a Canadian product. The Neutral that I have is actually the old formula, which is superior to probably anything on the market today because it uses Freon TF as a solvent as opposed to alcohol-based, which all the new, more environmentally friendly cleaners have to use. So the Neutral that I'm using now, you can't buy that today. The new stuff is very good, but the old stuff, which I have, is better. It's just a better cleaner. So I actually think that this is better than Deoxit, but Deoxit's better than the new Neutral. Turn the unit over to access this other switch over here. This is the double switch. Going to line up all these switches so that everything lines up before I put the screws back in. Otherwise the solenoids are not going to operate the required switches. Oh yeah, and try not to pinch any wires while I'm at it. There are some wire bundles here that you gotta pull out of the way or push under so that they don't get caught. That sounds like an electric car backing into my driveway. Yep, they're pretty quiet. You know, so the circuit boards all say Elna on them. This was, I guess, back in the day before Panasonic made their own boards, and they had them made by other companies for them. So we'll just plug the Dolby board back in. I got to line up the pins and plug it in place. Now the Dolby board is actually held in place by this bracket, which I didn't take off before unplugging it because I undid the board from the bottom, but normally you would take this bracket off first. And all this bracket does is it just holds the circuit board in place so it doesn't pop out. Like that. So if you take the board out from the bottom like I did, when you put the Dolby board back in, you've got to loosen off this bracket in order to secure it. That's what stops the board from popping out in everyday use. Okay, now that the switches are clean, let's see whether this will play a tape. It does. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, sounds as good as I guess it could sound. This was a recording that was made on the Akai. Dolby FM switch, by the way. Yeah, as noted, that has to be off. When the Dolby FM switch is on, it's only going to pass sound from the tuner input, because there is an input on the back for tuner. If you are receiving a Dolby FM broadcast, something that we don't get anymore, but back in the 1970s, they were experimenting with Dolby FM noise reduction. And basically what they did was the radio station would actually, at night, usually in the wee hours of the morning, they would send out a calibration tone on the transmitter, which you would use to calibrate the Dolby FM calibration down here. You would calibrate your meters to 0 dB. Actually, I think you calibrated them to the Dolby mark on here. There's a Dolby mark right on the VU meters, which is at the +3. You would calibrate the tone to the Dolby mark, and then when the broadcaster broadcast music, they would process it with Dolby, and you would have the Dolby FM switched on. They don't broadcast in Dolby FM anymore. In fact, it was more of an experimental broadcast. I don't know of any stations that actually broadcast Dolby FM full time, but I do remember back in the 1970s they would broadcast, like at night, they would play an entire album and they would broadcast it using Dolby FM. And the cool thing is that you could record it on your, like a cassette deck, with your Dolby turned off, and you would end up with a recording that was recorded in Dolby. So then you could record it on a regular cassette deck with the Dolby turned off and turn the Dolby on for playback, and it would sound normal. But there was some Dolby FM receivers that were made around the same era, and then there was some of these tape decks that had the Dolby FM decoder built in. So that has to be turned off or you're not going to get any sound. And I made that mistake initially when I first turned this thing on, that the Dolby FM switch was on like that. You saw me flip the Dolby noise reduction, and I just completely overlooked that one because I totally forgot that this unit here, I was thinking that the Dolby FM was only active if you were in the tuner mode over here, right? I was thinking it has to be in tuner mode, and this would pass a signal through or put it through the decoder, but that's not the case. Everything passes through this. So if this is on this deck, you get no sound. And that's different on different decks. Some decks that had the Dolby FM would only be active when you're in the mode that your tuner would normally be connected to. Because in a case like this, if you were receiving Dolby FM broadcasts, you wouldn't have your tuner connected to your tuner input on your receiver or on your amplifier. You'd have your tuner connected to the tuner input on here, and you would select the tape input, and you would select it by selecting the input. This is kind of funny because the input selector, it's got a mic input, line in, and then line in mic or tuner in mic. That selector basically turns off any input to the unit except for if there's a microphone plugged in. Anyway, that's where I kind of messed up on this one. So anyway, we get that problem solved. There's the problem was the record play switches, and now it works. So I'm just going to rewind this tape. I'll go to the other side of the tape, and we'll make a test recording, and we'll see how this unit sounds. One thing we'll look at on this unit is the unique operation of the auto stop. Now I went through this on my RS677, but we'll go through it again. The auto stop is this little wheel down here that you see spinning, and basically what it is it's connected to the take-up spool. So if I turn the take-up spool by hand, you'll see that it has slots in it. It has a small slot and a big slot. You see, and as this turns, there's a photocell and a light bulb. The light bulb is right here inside this plastic tube. It's just a regular incandescent bulb that will burn out, by the way. It will burn out, and when it does burn out, the machine will not play. It'll stop after a few seconds. But basically what it's doing is, as the tape is rotating, it's watching the light pass through the metal disc and hit the photocell below. So it's getting an on-off. It'll be a wide pulse followed by a narrow pulse. And that's what's being used to operate the auto stop circuit. Kind of neat, huh? It works similar to how the Hall effect device worked on the Akai. The Hall effect device or a reed switch. So there's basically three types of auto stop that has been used. Cassette decks typically we use a rotation sensor. How the rotation sensor works is, if it's a magnet that's turning, it could be sitting next to a Hall effect device which will change the voltage depending on the magnetic influence. If it's a reed switch, such as the type used in security systems for your magnetic contacts on your doors and windows, the rotating magnet will cause the switch to open and close, which will then of course provide your on-off pulse. And the photoelectric type like this shines the light through, and as the light beam is broken, lands on a photocell, which will either allow current to pass or it will resist the current. Because a photocell, of course, increases its resistance in dark environments and lowers its resistance when light hits it. So of all of the schemes, this is the least reliable because it's based on an incandescent light bulb. And an incandescent light bulb is eventually, there you see, stop. An incandescent light bulb is eventually going to burn out. So when the incandescent light bulb burns out, you hit play, and if I stop this with my finger, this is what will happen. See? Play. Stop. That's what happens if it stops turning. So first thing we're going to do on this is I'm going to check the speed, because the speed is adjustable on this one. There's a speed adjustment. It's back. I think it's back here on this one. There's a speed adjustment for this unit. We're going to check the speed out, make sure it's going the right speed, and then we'll do a test recording on this unit. And if all is good, we'll send this one on its way. Okay, let's load our tape and we will make a test recording. So I'm going to hit the record button. This is a chrome tape. We're going to set our record levels. And we'll cue this up. Okay, we'll record. I still got my scope plugged into one channel. We'll just switch that back. Okay, that's got that one working. One thing I will do is I'm going to get some rubbery new and just put it on the idlers down in here if I can, just to give them a bit of a fighting chance, soften them up just a little bit. They are turning okay, but it certainly won't hurt to put a little bit of rubbery new around the edges on the tires, just so that they will stay nice and soft and provide some grip for a few more years. There we go. I'll just fast forward this tape and rewind it a few times to let the rubber renew soak in and do its magic to the surface of the idlers. Lots of torque there. Lots of torque on rewind as well, as you can see. Everything seems to be okay. Rewind. Clean the head on this. This does lift out. You just push it over to the side and it should lift out just like that. That makes getting at the HPF head just a little bit easier. Let's clean the head on this unit with some isopropanol. Same goes for the pinch roller and the capstan. And by the way, this video is cat approved. What's the matter? We're going to clean the switches on this, and notice that the mic level switch control here, listen. So we're going to clean these controls while the unit's apart. Where are we here? Other ones don't sound too bad. Might not hurt just to give them a shot of cleaner since I'm in here anyway, right? Here they are down here. So we'll just give these ones a shot of cleaner. Any noise on these other switches, but we can give them a shot of cleaner at the same time. All the switches and controls have now been cleaned, and I'm going to put this one back together and send it on its way. One last time. Turn the Dolby on. Okay, all done. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.